Good advice, bad advice. We've all received both. And today we're going to share it with each other. So stay tuned. Welcome to the Christian Indie Writers Podcast, where we inform, encourage, and support Christian indie writers on their journey toward publication. I'm Jennifer Carl Tong, and I write historical Christian romance.
I'm Christina Catane, and I write multiple genres, including Christian fantasy.
And we already have an active chat this morning. So happy to see our friends in here. Good morning, Catherine, Carol. We're so glad you're here. I'm very glad you're here because you're a very big part of this episode. I almost called it the Catherine Carol Hour today. Purpose Behind the Pen is here as well. Good morning. And Jess Glidden, good morning, y'all.
Oh, boy.
If you are not a patron and you missed out on our live Q&A last night, you're not going to get that joke. But if you are a patron and you were there, which SL Perrin was, good morning, SL, you're going to get that why I laughed so hard at that. So, Jess, I appreciate you. Well, good morning to everyone who is listening and joining us live. We appreciate that. We appreciate you so much. Please drop a little note to us in the chat and get to know some of our friends over there. If you are listening to this as a podcast, we appreciate you too. If you would follow and subscribe and like and share. I don't even know what to call it in podcasts. I do listen to podcasts. Follow us. I guess that is what I would like you to do. We would appreciate that, and tell all your friends and help to grow this community of like-minded believers who are on the same journey that you are. All right. So we like to start every episode of the podcast with our What's Up. It's a time for us to share with our friends and with each other what's going on in our personal lives or our professional lives. So Tina, what's going on with you? What's up?
Well, I had a pretty good productive week. I showed up for the Zoom writing. Should we call it the shenanigans writing room?
Mhm.
And showed up at least 2 days this week. I had a doctor's appointment, or it wasn't a doctor's appointment, but a medical appointment. And I overslept one morning. But other than that, I made it. I did some work on my editing, and I did a lot of work on our Patreon this
Ah,
week. Like, I got the June welcome to June post out actually on June 1st this month. So it's like everybody applaud me because that's a first. Well, this is only the third month. So it only took me 3 months to get it right. I've
right.
been a little bit late the other 2 months, but I got it all out there. All the links are in there for our Bible study, and our live Q&A was in there, and for the Zoom room, which is open 24/7. If anytime you want to go in there and write, you can do that. And
What
so
level do they have to be at in order to be able to do that?
all three of those things are the $5 level. And then
Mhm.
for the $10 level, you can actually watch us when we used to record postcasts
Mhm.
way back when we first started. And let me tell you, that's I don't know if it's comedy or if it's just cringy,
Cringety. Yeah, cringety.
but we critique each other's writing in those. And so there is something to be gleaned if you'd like to watch those.
Right. Plus, we have some plans to add some more things to the $10 level that we're working towards and considering. So appreciate anyone who has already joined at that level. You guys are the best. We know that you support this ministry and what the plan is for the future of this ministry, and we really appreciate that.
Yeah.
So, well, my big news of the week is two things. First of all, I gave up coffee because I love coffee, but I'll be honest, I don't love black coffee. I love coffee for its dessert-like abilities, and I realized that it was a crutch for me, and so, for various reasons, I decided I needed to be done. And so I'm drinking iced tea, which I also love and has caffeine in it, but it still doesn't seem to have the same zing. So I feel like I'm very cloudy today, and which is funny because like I gave it up a while ago. It's been almost a week, but yesterday and today it's been like my body's like, wait a minute, you're serious? And so it's been a little rough. Um, So that's like the one thing that I want to talk about. The other thing is my oldest daughter graduated on Saturday.
Oh,
And
she was so
yeah,
beautiful.
thank you. I appreciate it. Um I'm glad you said that because honestly, whatever I put on Facebook, that's all we have because I lost the external hard drive that has all her pictures on it. We've looked everywhere.
Oh,
I'm
no.
not even joking.
That's
So,
terrible.
yeah, forever in my mind, I suppose, but yeah, I'm so proud of her and all she's accomplished, and, she is going to Olivet Nazarene University in the fall on a full tuition scholarship and
That's
is,
awesome.
she's just a beacon of light for me, and, I love all my girls. I'm just so blessed. But this mama is sad to be, like, already thinking about her leaving the nest, so be praying for
I
me
remember
because
those days very clearly.
yeah, whew,
We
I get
Toy
it.
Story 3 came out in July of the year that all 3 of my grown children left the nest.
Wow.
And I sat in the movie theater with, my son at the time was like 7, my youngest,
Mhm.
and we bawled. Like, we just bawled
Aw.
in the movie theater because the mom goes into the room and she's, like, packing up the son's
Oh, yeah.
stuff.
Oh, that's the worst to watch. Yeah.
So, yeah, it was, and my son was just as sad as I was 'cause,
Yeah.
his sister was like another mother to him, and to have her
Mhm.
going away, like, both of us, we were just bawling together. So
Mhm.
I've been there and I know it's hard, but you will make it through, and your daughter will graduate and she'll have babies, and there'll be like this whole other dimension to your relationship that you never even dreamed was possible.
Yeah, I told her she has to come home. She cannot meet somebody from another state and move anywhere else. Like, she's not allowed. My
Yeah.
girls are gonna have to buy houses next door to me,
Hmm.
because I fully plan on being full-time daycare for them, 100%. Even if they don't have jobs, they are gonna be with me.
Right. We should just start like a compound of like homesteading compound.
My friend Erica and I said that years ago. There was property for sale across from our church, and we're like, "Hey, I mean, cults do it. We can help raise each other's kids. We could, like, be
Well,
babysitters for
we
each
wouldn't
other."
have to be a cult. I mean, that's how it used to be.
No,
Like,
I'm like, the cult if cults can do it, we should reclaim that is what we were saying. We should do it.
right, because
Yeah.
like multi generations living together and all that, it was so much easier to raise kids and do all the things. And like, why
Mhm.
everyone's trying to do it on their own is crazy to me.
My parents lived 20 minutes from me, and we're still like, I could not have been the mom that I am if it wasn't for my parents. My mom was super active in helping me raise my kids and watching them for me all the time, and when they were very young, she started taking them overnight because to her she said, I want grandma's home to be as comfortable as home to them." And it is. To this day, my kids are like, "Can I go to grandpa's?" I mean, my mom's gone now, but my dad's still around, and they'll just go. And my dad's like, "I don't have anything for them to do." I'm like, "They don't wanna do anything. They just wanna be there and be with you." Like, they'll watch TV, and he'll go to the grocery store and let them pick out food and stuff, and this last time that my girls went over, he took them to Michael's, and they got to do a whole craft shopping spree and craft at his house, which was a
Oh,
grandma.
well, can I go to Grandpa's?
Right? But that was a Grandma Judy thing. That's what Grandma Judy used to do with them, and so it was kind of nice to that he continued that, so
Yeah.
I wanna be that for my kids, but if they move to another state, oh.
When my daughter, before she met her husband, got married, she wanted to be a missionary in Africa.
Oh gosh. Dear Jesus, please no. I
And
know you need missionaries, but
we
not mine.
we had gone to Minnesota to visit my cousins, and my one cousin was teasing her and saying, you need to find yourself a nice Minnesota boy. So you need to like drive through and find a farm with lots of silos, because the more silos, the richer the farmer." And he was giving her this advice, and he said, "So when you meet somebody, I need you to send me two things. I need a picture of his boat and a picture of his hunting land." And then Amber's like, "No, I'm going to Africa, and I'm going to find a South African man with an accent." And like,
So not just on a mission trip, she's on a mission.
guess where her husband is from? Duluth,
Minnesota.
Minnesota,
She met him here in Michigan, but
with
that's the
very
best.
light hair and blue eyes, like
Yeah.
opposite of what she said she was going to do.
That's so awesome.
Yeah.
Oh,
Anyway,
golly. So
kids
funny.
they're the joy of my life, but grandkids, oh my gosh.
I know.
Grandkids are just everything.
My grandpa was a pastor, an old Southern pastor who had been transplanted to Michigan. So he's just really stood out with his Stetson that he wore all over the place, and cowboy boots everywhere he went. And he was constantly saying from the pulpit that if he had known how much fun the grandkids were going to be, he'd have had them first. Like he,
Exactly.
yeah. And we grew up
Exactly.
knowing how special we were to my grandparents. So I want my grandkids to know that too.
And
So.
my granddaughter, Eliana, the youngest, just started talking in like almost complete sentences. Like on Monday, she wasn't doing it, and on Friday, she was.
Mhm.
And we were
That
in the
was my
kitchen.
Chloe.
We were in the kitchen cooking, and she's like, "Gamma, come on, Gamma, come on." And she pulled me into the living room and pointed to my recliner. So I
Uh-huh.
sat down, and she got her little elephant chair and sat down next to me. We watched Bluey for a few minutes. Like I was like, "I'm making dinner, but hey, Eliana calls, Eliana gets what Eliana wants."
Plus, it's Bluey. If you're
Yeah.
out there and you've not seen Bluey yet, it is totally acceptable for a full-on adult to watch Bluey. It is
Oh
that
yeah.
good. It is really
My
good.
husband turns Bluey on when he knows she's on her way.
I teased my kids. Last summer, my kids went on a mission trip down to Tampa Bay, and they were in a hotel, and they were up till like 3 in the morning watching Bluey, and then tired the next day when they called me, and because they had work to do, and I was like, "Well, no wonder you're up watching a kids show. Are you kidding me?" They're like, "Mom, it's so good." I'm like, No show is that good." They came home, and I'm like, "Okay, I get it. I get it now."
My daughter has a like one of those big cups that says I'm in my Bluey mom phase.
Yes. We saw it. When we went together to the planetarium, my girls spotted it and they're like, "Look at her cup." And they're like, "Where'd she get it?" But I think someone made it for
Her
her.
her secret sister at church made it for her,
Yeah,
and she
that's
made
good.
her a T-shirt and like a bag to carry stuff in.
That's fun.
Let's
That's
say
super
that.
fun. Jess says, or the more heads of cows he has, the fuller his pockets are. Hey, I
There you
mean,
go.
that y'all, it's a Texas thing. Purpose behind the pet sense. Congratulations, Jennifer. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Yes, I got her to adulthood without killing her. Congratulations to me. Jess also says that she went through that last month with her one and only son. She said, "So I will definitely be praying for Mama Jen. It's so hard to let our babies go little by little." Yeah. So
It
I
is.
raised my 3 stepchildren. Like my oldest stepson was 9, but the others were little. Like Spencer was 4 when I became his full-time mom. And so, but you learn, like, I was so sad when they went off, and like, especially Spencer, who's the baby, and I was probably closest to him. But like, it's a different sadness when it's someone that you birthed. I
Yeah,
don't I don't know how to explain it.
raised from a baby, yeah.
Yeah, I love my stepchildren like my own, but there's a different connection that is just, yeah, this is a rough one for me. But it's also exciting. We have her open house coming up. Some states don't do it like Michigan does, but we do a big old party, and hers is coming up next Saturday, and so we got a lot of work to do to get ready for that. And she chose a breakfast to do a breakfast.
That's
And
interesting.
yeah, and so it's interesting, but we didn't think about the fact that we're gonna have to get up it's gonna have to we don't have all day to get ready, like, we're gonna have to,
Yeah.
like, be up early, so but it's gonna be fun,
You could
so
do some casseroles that sit in the fridge at night, and then you put them in
y
first in the morning.
yeah, yeah, we have a whole menu kind of like that, so we'll see. Oh, well, if the food's terrible, just go to the waffle bar. We're gonna have a waffle bar where you can make your own waffles.
Oh, there you
So
go.
so if you hate everything else, if nothing else works out, then, like, if the bacon's cold and the eggs are runny, just go make a
You
waffle.
could put the eggs and bacon in the waffle iron and heat them up and make a chaffle.
You could. You really could. All right. Now I'm getting hungry. Thanks a lot. No, I'm just kidding.
Sorry.
No, no, no. I'm just kidding. I actually had breakfast this morning. I normally don't eat before the podcast, and today I did, and I feel really good. Except for I feel really foggy because of the lack of coffee. But I got my iced tea. We're good. All right. today's episode is it's going to be a fun one. I think when we talked about this, I love it whenever we can reach out to our community and get like some straight up content from them, because first of all, we talk about all the time how um how great our community is and how much knowledge is there and great advice is there. So when we came up with this idea, I'm like, we should just we talked about going straight to our Facebook group and doing a post and seeing what we get, and we got some good stuff, let me tell you. But Tina and I, we also had to think about ourselves, like what's some good advice that we had and some bad advice that we have been given. And so I remember the first thing that popped into my head for bad advice was I was in a writing group with, it was not a Christian writing group. It was just a writing group associated with back in the day, way back in the day with Nano. And this gentleman who writes sci-fi, his advice was, we need more of the third sister. He's like, what happened to the third sister? You forgot all about the third sister. We need more of the third sister. There was never a third sister in the piece of writing. But he spent in this writing group, you were not allowed to speak. When it was your time to be critiqued, you had to sit there quietly and you couldn't like interrupt. Well, no one else interrupted him either. So he went on and on for about 5 minutes. Maybe I'm exaggerating, but it was a minimum of 3 minutes about how I had just forgotten all about the third sister and this huge plot hole in my short story and blah, blah. And finally he finished ranting. And the next person went and like, was there a third sister? And everyone else like, I don't remember a third sister. So we had the majority of the, like, you only got like 15 minutes, and the majority of the time of my critique I was supposed to be getting was taken up with bad advice from somebody who didn't know the genre and who didn't really read it carefully and just wanted to hear himself talk. So that was my kind of first taste of bad advice from somebody in the writing world. So all right. So we're going to move on to what our listeners had to say. If you're not part of our Facebook group, you really need to be. It's such a great community of people, and it's free, obviously, like it's at Facebook. So head on over there. The link is in our show notes. But we're going to start with Catherine Carroll. Catherine, I should have put these in so they would show up on the screen. Catherine gave us a lot of bad and good advice, as did Teresa Thomas. We should have just called this the Catherine and Teresa show today. But there's a lot of good stuff from them. So we're going to start with Catherine. And she said, bad, you should write insert genre you've never expressed interest in here. And Teresa said something very similar. She said, bad. She said, not necessarily advice, but a strategy I feel like is pushed in some writing groups that she follows. The only way to make money is by writing to market, no matter if it fits your brand or lines up with your beliefs. All right, so let's discuss this, Tina. Is this bad advice?
I think it could be.
Mhm.
Yes. Like, well, people have told me that I should write murder mysteries, but that's
Mhm.
based on the fact that that's what I read. And then when I
Mhm.
wrote sprints with murder mystery vibes, people were like, you should write that. It, but so that doesn't really qualify because she's saying here you've never expressed any interest in.
Right.
Like, why
So
would I do that?
I think that what the problem is, that it's good advice that is being presented badly. The good advice is right to market, but what does that mean? Like, you really need to understand what that means. And there, Chris Fox has written a book called, I think, really honestly called Right to Market, and it's a pretty quick read. I highly recommend it. I think it's in Kindle Unlimited. If not, it's pretty cheap. Um, and it's a good read. So, writing to market means to figure out what is selling in the market and you write to that. It does not mean to, like, as Catherine is saying, to write something that you've never had any interest in, that you don't read, that you're
Or
not
that's
familiar
trendy
with,
at the moment.
or because this is what happens with trends, right?
Mhm.
But the good advice is like, I love romance. I've always known that that's what I wanted to write. If I had written to market specifically, maybe I would be writing, I would have probably written Regency Christian romance. But it's cyclical, right? Between Regency and Western is mostly what happens. Um, is early 20th century Christian romance a very popular genre? It is not. There are not many, if any, authors out there that are writing that genre. But do I sell? I still sell because
Yeah.
it's still historical and people are interested in good writing. So, but Christian romance sells. So, um, I'm still writing to market by choosing Christian romance, but I'm writing what is interesting to me.
Right.
Um, all right. So Catherine is speaking up and she says, in my situation, after reading my Christian romance, friends tried to get me to write for teens or write children's books. Oh, because they wanted you're writing them to present it to their own children. Right. So listen, I say that Christian romance can be read by teenagers. I read it as a teenager and it helped to form my view of what romance should be within marriage and why you should do things God's way when the world was telling me a whole bunch of other things. So,
Mhm.
um yeah.
And when it comes to the market, I like what Becca Syme says all the time, that Loki is in charge.
Yeah.
And what is but the market is never wrong. The
Mhm.
market is always right. So what's selling today is what should be selling today. But that doesn't mean that your book, if it's not what's selling today, is never going to sell,
Right.
because Loki is in charge. And next week he could decide that whatever you wrote is now what the market wants.
Plus, it's not good advice if you are not that concerned about selling your book. If your concern is that we all want to sell our books, but if your concern is to write the story that God gave you, your main focus isn't selling. But if you're coming at this as a very business perspective, which is not wrong, someone as a Christian can come into this and say, I feel called to do this for to support my family, and this is my business and they do it wholeheartedly and they choose the right to market. That's not wrong either. So the advice is only wrong if it does not fit who you are or it, like as
Right.
Teresa said, that it doesn't line up with your beliefs.
Yeah.
Like I'm never going to write the nasty romance. I'm just not going to. I
Hmm.
sell a whole lot more. I could write it. I'm a good writer. I could probably write something that would sell, but that does not line up with my beliefs, and I would not be able to I would not be able to wake up and look at myself in the mirror in the morning, so
And you might be little of both. Like, I feel like I'm both. I want to write books that honor God and that will help people in in their faith, in their Christian walk. I also
mhm,
want to make money
mhm,
and help hopefully support my family with it.
right,
So like there's like a whole mix of where you might be in that kind of mindset.
right. Um, so I would also kinda argue too, look, if you really do wanna make money, you can look at the market and you can see and I understand what Becca is saying, but we can also look and see that romance is a much larger piece of
Oh
the
yeah.
pie than other genres that you might enjoy reading, and you just need to understand that. That if you're going to choose one of those other genres that, it's just a different ball game, right?
Yeah.
But less
Yeah.
competition sometimes is good.
Definitely Christian romance sells much better than Christian fantasy.
Yes. But there's lots of Christian fantasy. I was just at the Christian bookstore, and they have a whole section of stuff, so hold on a second. I have to let my dog out. There, come on. Sorry about that, Molly. I thought Molly was gonna stay in here. She acted
Molly
like she
runs
wanted to
the
be in here.
show, so it's okay.
She really does. She thinks it's her office too, so if I'm in here, she thinks she has to be in here.
We should make her the CEO.
Yeah. All right. The next piece of advice that Catherine got that she said was the best was learn the craft. And I have to piggyback on this because I would say that my good advice that was given to me was learn story structure.
Right. I
Yeah.
think that's really good advice because we could go out and write 10 books or 12 books or 15 books, but if you don't have good structure, if you don't have good writing craft,
Mhm.
then people aren't going to want to read it, or they're not going to want to read the next one, which is really the goal. You want them to keep reading.
Right.
And some advice that goes along with that that was given to me just recently is just don't learn the theory, because I'm a
Mhm.
big learner. I love to learn everything, but take what you've learned and go practice it
Mhm.
and practice it and practice it and do the iterations and even have some failures, because that's where we learn.
Absolutely agree. All right. Teresa Thomas shared that a bad piece of advice that she was given is if you don't write every single day of your life, you aren't really a writer. That's ridiculous. I have I am so sick and tired of people who mostly are not writers themselves, putting parameters on whether or not you can call yourself an author. Who was I just listening to recently? The minute you sit down at a computer or a typewriter and you or a paper and pad and you start writing a story, you are an author. That's the definition of an author. I
Mm.
mean, I was always told that, well, if you're not published, you're not an author. Well, I am. I am published now, but like if you're a writer, if you're writing a story, you're authoring something. So you're an author. It there are no hard rules that you can't claim to be a writer if you don't follow these rules, especially that one. That's just absolutely
And I
ridiculous.
mean, just if you look at the writing habits of some of the most famous writers in history, that is not
Mhm.
how they wrote.
Mhm. Um Purpose Behind the Pen says that she used to write nasty romance before fully writing Christian romance. I enjoy writing stories to uplift the kingdom of God. Well, I appreciate you being transparent and sharing that. There are other writers out there, Christian writers, that are in the same experience. That and I think God's gonna bless you in that too. She said, "I hate that advice. I still write even if I am not typing or writing with the pen." Right.
Same.
Agreed.
I used to always say I have all these narratives running through my brain all the time. And if I could
Mhm.
just write them down, I could write a book.
Right. All right, Teresa Thomas also shared another bit of good advice. She said, "Don't end every writing session at the end of a scene or chapter. Coming back to a blank page is a lot harder than finishing an unfinished sentence or paragraph." That's advice from you, isn't it, Tina? I've heard you say that before.
I have. And if I don't stop before I'm fully done, I will purposely write at least the first sentence of whatever I see coming next
Mhm.
and put it on the paper so that my brain can percolate and I could put it in the bread maker, so to speak,
Mhm.
um, and let it rise and all that. So then when I come back the next day, there's already an idea percolating and I can
Mhm.
just sit down and write.
Yep. I love that advice. I often will I'll wanna keep writing, but instead of keep writing, I will put all caps on, and I will just say, "Then this is gonna happen, and this is gonna" I just, like, kinda, like, brain dump so that, like, I don't lose, like, kind of but I come back later and write it. I don't write it then because, again, once you have that, like, I don't know, that lump inside of you that you wanna get out on paper, once it's out there, sometimes it's hard to get another one built up. So if you
Yeah.
leave that there and then you come and the next day and you write that part, then you tend to write more than what you would have written. So I love it. Okay, another one from Catherine. She says, "Oh, I'm sorry. Let's go with Teresa." She says, "Best advice one of the best advice that she's been given was you don't have to write a novel in a month." So this was my thing when I first started my career. Was everybody was writing a book in a month, and if you could write a book in a month, you'd have 12 out in a year, and like it was very and like you do the math of it, and like logically, I should be able to write a book in a month logically, but I personally cannot do it, and I felt like, partially me was like a failure because I could not do that,
Yeah.
and I was setting myself up for failure, to be honest. So,
And honestly, like back when the market was different, more
yes.
books you could write just multiple books and they would sell no matter what. But now
Mhm,
the market is so full and saturated that people are looking for quality over
mhm,
quantity. And to take your time and do good quality, if you can't write a quality book in a month, then you need to take your time and write a quality book, however long that takes you. And probably as you get going down the road, it's probably going to take less and less time. But like where I am in my career, it's taking me a long time to get one book done.
right, same,
And that's what people are going to want in this market, the way it's changing with there being so many books out there right now.
right. Sonia L. Perrin said something similar. She said, bad advice she was given was publish a minimal viable product and write the next book. Hurry, hurry, get them books out there and reap the sales. She says she prefers quality over speed. So very similar to Teresa's advice, but that she was given, but was given it as a bad advice. I do want to caution us though, because I do think that there are members in our community that write quickly and they put out good quality. If you cannot, like Tina said, if you cannot put out good quality in a month, then don't do that. But there are people that just write fast. It's just who they are. And we're not here to start like categorizing people. Fast writers are bad, slow writers are good, because I don't think that
But
that's
if we
true.
see them in the parking lot, we're running them over. No,
No.
just kidding.
No.
Just kidding.
No. Because we have people in our community that are fast writers and put out lots of books in a year, and, that's just who they are as writers, and that's okay too, but it's not good advice to take if that's not who you are, so
Yeah. And a lot of times what works for me doesn't work for anyone else. So
mhm,
I shouldn't be giving out advice of this is how you should be doing something.
right. I also think that the stage of your life that you're in also affects some of this advice, whether you can take it or not. I am homeschooling children right now, and I cannot drop everything and try to, produce something and, short term, like do a lot of writing, and kind of ignore other things because other things like want to eat and need to be
Yeah.
educated. And I think that
They
like
need their mama.
yeah, I think that when they're off on their own, my life will look a whole lot different, you
Hmm.
know? Unless
And
they move
I
in next door
mean,
with their grandkids.
you need to cherish all the time that you have with them.
Mhm. I
Even though
agree.
sometimes it feels hard and it feels like it's like that saying, the nights are long, but the days are the or the month years are fast, but the nights are long. I think
Yeah.
that's the saying about parenthood. Like
Mhm.
now that I'm out of that, I'm like I should have slowed down
Mhm.
and just cherished all those moments with my kids more.
I am absolutely feeling that right now. I feel like I've been a present mom, but when I look back and I'm like, I wish I could like pray, Lord, can I please have a time machine? I just wish I could go back and do some things different. Or just go back, like you said, and just slow down
Hmm.
and not worry about certain things that don't matter as much.
And watching my granddaughter grow so quickly. Like
Mm,
1 minute she's talking, and like last week she wasn't.
right.
It's just crazy to me.
Right. Okay, so Catherine Carroll also says that so she's some great advice that she was given that might be different for everybody else, but I do agree with this. Is don't advertise until you've got at least a few books out. This completely took the pressure off of her at the beginning. By the time she started advertising, she had a backlist of 6 or 7 books. I so feel this because if I believe that the beginning of my writing issues, along with losing my mom and my brother, were the fact that I was trying to advertise too soon and I got burnt out so quickly. Um, I I had always been told, like, wait till you have 2 or 3 books out to start advertising. I think that Catherine has it right. Wait till you have 6 or 7 books out. Just worry about being a writer. And I mean, unless you for sure need to make money right now, just worry about writing.
And
And
you're if you invest in advertising, you're not going to make a return for a while.
yeah.
That's true in any business. And
Mhm.
so you have to have money to spend that you don't mind not getting back right away. And so I'm thinking I'm not going to start really advertising until I have money that I can afford to lose. I don't have that right now. I whatever can every now and then I'll get some extra money and I'll do these little experiments because I love to do little experiments. And
Right.
I'll experiment with one like a promotion, not advertising, but
Right,
promotion.
promotions are a little different. I agree.
And I see what it does, and so I'm gonna have some kind of like experience and knowledge under my belt when I get to the place where I'm ready to start for real.
Right. Mhm. All right, Catherine shares a craft, advice. She says best advice that she received was don't have a wall of either dialogue or narrative. That's good advice because either one of them becomes very boring as a reader.
Hmm.
Yep.
You don't want
Because
me
you have
skipping the pages.
right. And plus we do become involved in the stories that we read and they become real to us. But we also have to remember that there is a certain element of visualness to reading that is not in like it's different than the visualness that's involved in watching a movie, right? It's
Right.
so much more action. But so you have to think like what does this page look like? Like because it does, even if we as readers don't realize it, it does affect us the way that we approach something that we're reading. And she also said, um, best advice is edit, edit, edit. I
Yes.
agree, agree, agree.
And when you think you're done editing, edit again.
Mhm.
Yeah. Don't be like me with my first book and just speed through it and think it's okay.
Right.
Don't do that.
When Tina, I have an answer for this one. Let me see what you think. When do you know that it's time to be done editing? Do you have an answer?
I d
Uh,
I
That's
don't
okay.
I feel like I'm gonna know it in my gut.
Yeah. Someone said to me once that when you get to the point where you're just trying to decide between commas and whether there should be a comma there or not, you're done editing. When that's the only thing you have left to do is,
When you
should I
get
put a
down to the
comma
line
here?
edits, yeah.
Like the minuscule stuff. And I do think that's good advice. I also think that good advice from me, take it or leave it, is that you need to have a plan of editing that you start off before you even begin.
Right.
And make sure you go through that whole like the stages of what you're gonna do and how you're gonna go about it. And we've had episodes about that, specifically talking about what I do for editing. So you can go back and listen to those. But I think having a plan and then you can check that off. And then when you get to the bottom of that plan, you're like, okay, it's time to publish.
And we just recently did one on stoplight editing, which is the one I'd use, so
Yes, yes, how did I forget that? We just did that one.
I don't
Yep.
know.
Catherine said, "And set it aside between edits." Yes.
Yeah.
That's time to go back to writing or do
And
something else.
and if you can afford it at all, get yourself an editor. Get another
Mhm,
set of eyes on there.
mhm. Alright, here's my brain fog. Jess says, "I like that. What does this page look like?" What page?
Where you said, "What does the page look like with the wall of dialogue?" And
Oh, a mixture of it.
yeah,
Um, I can show you later. I don't know how to show it, like, here, but it would be a mixture of paragraphs and dialogue, and it goes back and forth, and you don't have too long of dialogue before you go to it, and you don't have too many paragraphs. Like, I am not a fan of John Steinbeck. Like, a great American author, maybe. I don't like him. My biggest fault with him is he will have pages and pages and pages of description with no dialogue. Beautiful description, but when you have, like, 11 pages talking about a turtle crossing the road, you've lost me.
mhm,
Like, you need to decide what is the most important elements. Well, if it's such beautiful, almost poetic, um, analogy between the turtle crossing the road and these people, what they're going through, then make it like find the best meat of that and make it shine. I don't need to go on for like a dozen pages of that. So,
right.
um,
I like Catherine's advice about editing. When
mhm.
you're just rearranging the words but not improving them, stop editing.
Amen. I agree with that too. So piggybacking off of what Catherine said, Piper Dow says the best advice she was given was read, read, read.
Yep, that's
Sorry.
definitely it's like inputting for me. It's filling
Mhm.
my cup up with words and with prose and with the ideas, and it like all sits in there and then I can pour it out.
And I would even be more specific on what you read too. Like, I know a lot of people say you should read all different genres. Maybe that's not the advice that's good for me because when I read different genres, then my writing is affected by it, I think. But if you, again, we're talking about right to market, whether you should do that or not, maybe not, but if you should at least, whatever you're writing, you should know that market. Maybe
Yeah,
that's how I would mend that advice from earlier. So if you are not writing to market, but you're writing something you love, you need to know what you're writing. And so you need to, in my opinion, you need to be reading the best sellers of your genre. Go to Google and Google best-selling Christian romance or whatever your genre is, and then pull up then the on Google, the Amazon one that shows up first, click on that and start reading those books. Because that will show you what if you're not writing a market, but you are writing what you feel led to write, at least you need to see, well, what is the expectation in
of
that
the
genre
reader. Yeah,
of the reader? Yes, specifically the reader, not what some like, fat cat up in like a big building in New York is saying. What are the actual reader? What are the
right.
readers reading right now?
Because when I look up Christian fantasy, I have expectations, and that what I want to read because I want to read a book like what I've read before that really just made me happy. So I want
Mhm,
similar books, and so I'm looking for similar books. And so you want to be similar, but I also like new ideas and things that surprise me. So like
mhm.
no pressure. That's what you should
All right, all right. Um, Jess says And why you love it, by breaking it down to certain aspects you want to include.
Yeah,
Exactly. You're not copying what these writers did, but what was it about it? What are the elements about it that made you keep turning the page or that made you love it? Or what made you hate it as a reader? But
right.
keep in mind, it's the best sellers, at least for that day, right?
Yeah, or that hour even.
Right. Um And Piper kind of, taking tails off of this too with her, another best writing advice that she was given was write what you love. I
Yeah.
agree. I absolutely agree with that because, again, romance has always been what I've loved, so it was easy for me. But, if you just love writing and you love reading lots of different genres, you gotta figure out what do you love, right?
Mhm.
Like, and I think that with writing sprints, that helps, right, Tina? Like, you love fantasy, but the reason why we all encourage you to write like the murder mysteries and that is because it flows out of you.
Yeah,
When you have like a free time to write and there's no like parameters at all, that stuff comes out of you very easily and just
yeah,
in really great quality. And so maybe I think that writing sprints is a good way to figure out, what is it I love to write?
right. And, like, I always got A's in creative writing, like, college
Mhm.
and high school and elementary school, A. But what I learned is that writing a short story, writing a 1,000-word assignment is such a different monster
Oh, yeah.
than writing a novel. A novel is like a group of monsters. And and to be if you're going to sustain yourself and your interest, and especially if you're like me and you get bored quickly,
Mhm.
you need something you really love, because otherwise you're gonna get 3/4 of the way through it and be saying, "Do I even wanna do this anymore? Like,
Yeah.
I'm so tired of these people and this story and this place." And
Yeah, I get that. I totally
yeah.
get that. So that's good advice. All right. So Piper had some bad advice that she'd been given as well. She said the advice was you need to start the story in the middle of the action. She said, maybe if you're writing an action story, but if you're writing a story that's largely much slower, you'll be setting expectations that your story will fail to meet. This is some good advice.
Mhm.
This is some bad advice she was given, and that we need to look at and turn it into good advice than to possibly not take this. I agree. If you're not writing something that's gonna be full of action, starting in the middle of action is probably setting up bad expectations for the reader.
Right, but you do need to hook your reader in some
Yes.
way. If your story is an emotional story, then just
Mhm.
get us in our feels, like, in the first paragraph.
Yes, agreed.
Whatever you're writing, it needs to hook us and it needs to make us want to keep reading.
Figure out what kind of story you are writing and hook us in that way
Mhm.
and at the very beginning. Agreed.
Yeah.
All right, Tina, we're going to end with some advice that we have been given ourselves. Um,
Okay. You want
Tina,
me to
you
go?
said I want you to go.
Okay. Bad advice that I got, and for years it derailed me from writing anything. Don't spend so much time daydreaming. You're procrastinating. You need to get your butt in the seat and your fingers on the keyboard. And the reason that was bad advice for me, because of the best advice I ever got. For
Mhm.
me, thinking is working. Learning
Mhm.
is working, inputting is working, contexting is working, and ideating is working. And I do all of that in my head way long before I sit down and put my fingers on the keyboard.
Yep. And if you don't understand what she's saying, go back and we have a couple of different episodes with Becca Syme, and she talks about strength writing for strength finders for writers.
Thanks for writers. Yeah.
Thank you. Sorry, it used to be called strength finders back in the day. Um, and knowing your strengths and leaning into them as a writer is very very important.
It changed everything for me. It absolutely changed, and not just in my
Mhm,
writing life, in my entire life.
mhm.
Like, all this time I spend thinking, well, that's because that's my number 2 strength, and I
Yeah.
need to do that to have quality in the things that I do when I don't spend let myself think and learn and take in information. my
Mhm.
quality falls. Whatever I'm doing, whether it's teaching the Bible study or cleaning the house, even. I read
Mhm.
books about how to clean the house to inspire myself to clean my house.
Yeah,
Like
I
it's
do
it's
too.
like takes over everything in my life.
Mhm. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
All right, so my best advice ever given is contrary to Tina's. My best advice ever given is butt in chair. Get your butt in the chair and write, and, on a daily basis, or at least on a certain schedule. Um, but I'm not following that advice right now. The season that I'm in the past couple of years, I have not been doing that, and y'all know what's been going on in my life. But I will tell you that I still believe it is good advice for me at least, because the fact that I'm not having my butt in the chair on a regular basis and doing regular office hours, it has caused me to not have a daily writing habit, and my writing quality has been affected. And I appreciate everybody and how they're encouraging when I read my sprints and stuff, but as a writer, I know my writing quality has been affected. And so we wanted to end with these 2, not because we wanna fight about this idea, because yeah, but because we know that we're both right. We are
Yeah.
both right because we are 2 different individuals.
Yeah. Oh, she froze for
That
a minute.
advice should be, someone shares something with you and you say, "Thank you very much," and then you decide if it applies to you or not. You have to know who you are as a writer and take advice and ignore advice, and move on.
Yeah.
And we're all gonna figure out bad advice the hard way, right?
Right.
By trying
And what's
things
bad
out, and that's
advice for
okay.
me is great advice for you. And what's great
Right.
advice for you is bad advice for me. And
Yep.
so everybody's brain is different, personalities are different, writing styles, it's all different. So my
Mhm.
best advice for all of you is what works for you.
Agreed. And just like, we said in the description of this episode, like Harper Lee had said, many receive advice, only the wise profit from it. Profiting sometimes means you learn the hard way, and it's still a
Hmm.
profit to you. So
Yep.
thank you to everyone who shared advice in our Facebook group. We appreciate you guys. That was a lot of interaction, and we appreciate that. Um, but it's time for us to move on to the next section, which is our feeding of the bags. In every episode, before we start, we set a timer for 15 minutes and we sprint to the same exact prompt. Today, though, we set it to 10 minutes because Jen was having issues. Um,
We've got a little chatty.
we got a little
It wasn't
chatty.
just you.
Yes, but I was kind of the reason. And so we only sprinted for 10 minutes today, and so they're a little bit shorter, but because we don't edit them and we just present them live on the episode, we only give positive and encouraging feedback. So Tina, would you share with us what today's prompt was and then share
Sure.
what you wrote?
It was 5 words, and the 5 words were stow, traffic, ivy, rubber, and coop. And I'm not sure, I don't think I used any of the words, but I was definitely
All
inspired by them.
right.
So, I gotta take my glasses off to see this. The summer sun beat in through the hatchback, warming the back of Toby's neck as he lay with his head on his arms. The bump and hum of the car as it sped along the highway rocked him and his eyes drooped close. Ariana, where is your brother? His mother's shrill voice startled him from the seeds of a dream. He scrambled back over the seat and buckled himself into his booster seat, the rest of his mother's scolding falling on deaf ears. He popped his thumb in his mouth, and that was when he realized he'd forgotten Chico in the back. His lip quivered, and a tear escaped his eye. His mom still had her whole body turned toward the back seat, his father adjusting the rearview mirror with a look of disappointed authority on his face. Toby kept his gaze on his dad's eyes. At least there was no anger there. Finally, having run out of angry words, his mom turned back around. Toby felt his shoulders shaking as he finally let loose the sobs he'd been holding his breath to contain. What's wrong, Toby? Whispered Ariana, glancing to be sure her mom hadn't heard her. I left Chico, he said, pointing toward the back. Ariana slowly unbuckled her seatbelt. Toby was sure the click was loud enough to wake an entire city, but his mom was too busy singing one of the old songs from when she was in high school to notice. Ariana turned her whole body around, pushing up on her knees and reaching into the back. The The car hit a bump. Ariana's body was flung into the back of Mom's seat. Mom turned around. Ariana, what are you doing? She screeched. Ariana held up Chico, then handed it to Toby. Oh, that stupid rubber chicken, screeched Mom. I should check it out the window. Three, two, one.
You got rubber in.
I did
Yay!
get rubber in.
I loved it, and I love that, like, it was from the perspective of the kid, and, ah, I thought that was great. I thought it was, I felt like it was there, Tina. So, and I was, like, on the edge of my seat, like, when she flew into the back of her mom's seat, I'm like, "Oh, don't go there." Like, like, sometimes you're able you, like, take us there. I'm like, "No, please not with these kids. I love these kids already." So, well done. If I was already in love with the kids
Thanks.
enough that I didn't want
I
these
just
fake
saw
kids to
rubber
die.
and coop, and the first thing that came into my brain was a rubber chicken. And
Yeah.
I was like, okay, I guess I'm going with it.
Yeah. No, I love it. I love this
Thanks.
character. And, um, I similarly wrote something in a car too. The word stow is what made me think about cars. Did you think that inspired you too?
Yeah, it was like the stow and the traffic and,
Yeah.
Pat was it oh, no, wait, it was the coop word, but I
Mm.
kept thinking about the movie Ringo in the beginning
Yeah.
when, like, the aquarium's in the back of the hatchback of the car, so that kind
Uh-huh.
of inspired the
Yeah. Oh,
so what
I
did you
lost you.
write?
Okay. So I got 2 of the words. I got traffic and rubber in, and that's it. I was heading towards the other words, but nowhere near it. The traffic and we're back in Marnie's world.
Oh, goody.
The traffic into Boston on Sunday was far worse than it had been leaving on Friday. Marnie didn't think she would ever grow accustomed to the traffic that was a constant part of the Boston landscape, but Mr. Boss seemed unaffected. He calmly maneuvered his Lexus through the throngs of vacationers returning to the real world as if they weren't in the middle of a motorized cattle drive. Even when the flow came to a complete stop, he seemed to not be bothered. You got any more of that rubber candy you were eating earlier? He asked. Marnie rolled her eyes. Do you mean gummy bears? She said as she turned in her seat to rummage through her weekender bag. She pulled out her half eaten Albanese gummy bears and poured some into his waiting, outstretched hand. If you think they taste like rubber, why do you want any? Because I'm hungry. And as far as rubber goes, these are pretty good. Marty agreed as she popped a few in her mouth. I'm hungry too. Without another word, Mr. Big turned on his blinker and began inching over into the lane to his right. Just like every aspect of his life, the traffic parted and made way for the man's whim to exit the freeway. Where are you going? She asked. He shrugged. You said you were hungry. Three, two, one.
Oh,
As far as I
goody.
got.
They're gonna go get something to eat.
Yeah. Why is that exciting? Yay, they're going to eat.
Well, because it's kinda like a date, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, they're gonna
yeah.
have a meal together, and it's gonna probably be kinda romantic.
Yeah.
Either that or it's gonna completely backfire. Either way, I'm good with like, I kinda prefer the backfiring, but
Yeah.
yeah,
Oh,
I
yeah.
love that.
There's a lot of backfiring in this
And
story.
gummy bears and trips, like, that's a thing, isn't it? Like, you have to
Yeah.
have gummy bears. I like the gummy lifesavers, which I'm not
Mhm.
eating anymore because I gave up sugar,
Right.
and, corn nuts. Like, I have to have
Oh.
them both, and then I, like, go back and forth.
So it's funny, I could live the rest of my life and never eat candy. Chocolate is different, but candy, I don't even care. But, Albanese candy, which I don't know if it's a thing in Boston. Like, this is something I would have to ask Piper, because I've not lived in Boston for almost 30 years. Um, but it's around here in the Midwest, and there is a candy factory in Indiana that we stop in sometimes on the way back from the college that my daughter's about to attend, my son went to, and, you can get, like, cheap candy, like, it's like a warehouse kind of a thing, but it's the best. It is I will actually eat those gummy bears, they're that good, but, yeah,
I've
I
never heard of them actually.
Oh, really? Yeah, they have 'em
Oh.
in gas stations here now, like, they're white bags,
Oh,
Albanese, yeah, they're the best gummy bears, but anyway, I don't know why it made me think of that, so I'm because I guess I think she's from the Midwest and is transplanted into Boston, so, yeah. Anyway,
yeah.
yeah. So,
Anyway,
yeah,
I always love hearing about Marnie and the Boss Man.
yeah,
That's always fun.
yeah. I'm gonna have to sit down and write that one too. So, All right, it's time for us to move on. It's almost time for us to pull this all together and end it. So it's time for our what's next. Tina, what is next for you?
Well, you're going to be gone the next 2 weeks.
I am.
And so it's kind of hard to host a podcast by yourself, because Jamie can't be here. So we're not going to
Mhm,
have a podcast next week, unfortunately. Sorry.
mhm,
But the week after that, we will have a podcast, and I am going to have my daughter on as a special co-host guest slash
mhm,
guest, and she's coming on as a avid reader.
mhm,
She loves to read, especially romance, and she's been dabbling in a little bit of fantasy lately.
mhm.
And so we're gonna do ask the reader anything episode. So I'm gonna put a post in the Facebook, and you can post your questions to my daughter as an avid reader and from an author. What is one thing you really want to know, or two or three, however many questions you have. And
Yeah.
we're gonna have a podcast where she answers all those questions.
Right. I love that. Because I mean, there's so many things that we base our decisions on because of what statistics say or what the experts quote on say. But like, is the book cover really that important?
Hmm.
This is something to ask a reader. What does a reader think about book covers? What draws a reader to a book? Those are kind of questions I would like to hear. So
Well,
yeah, that's
submit your
exciting.
questions.
I think I will.
And
Oh
what
yeah.
makes her put a book down, because she's an avid reader. And so if
Mhm.
she puts a book down, let me tell you, there's something wrong.
Yeah.
Just have to say.
All
So,
right.
yeah,
Awesome. So
definitely
don't
go
forget
on.
to go on over to our Facebook group. The link is in our show notes. And also, if you want to support this ministry even further, we would love to have you join us with us our Patreon supporters. All of the free episodes of the podcast are over there, and all of our public posts are all free. But for $3 a month, which is less than a cup of coffee at Starbucks, you could just support us just with the knowledge that your support is blessing this ministry. But at the $5 level, it's the shenanigans level, and you get all the benefits of having the live Zoom every month for the writing. You have a live Q&A with us every month, which we just had last night, and it was amazing. And then there's the Zoom room, and then a Bible study also once a month with Miss Christina Catane. Um, all of that for $5. I mean, it is a bargain. And there's other levels too if you want to support us more, and we would just really appreciate that. And if you have a new book coming out or want to sponsor a complete episode, we have what's called the sponsor the shenanigans, where we will have an episode sponsored by your book, and we will share your book on the episode. So go on
Yeah.
over to Patreon and take a look at all of that.
Yeah.
All right. But I guess that's it, Tina, unless you have anything else to share.
No,
But
I really don't.
I don't either. That's about it. So thank you everyone who's been here, and thank you everyone who listens to us as a podcast. We appreciate all of you, and thank you for your support. So until next week, may your pen be prolific, may your deadlines be met, and may all of your words honor Christ. Bye
Bye
everyone.
now.